Hey everyone, how you going? Happy 4th of July to our American fan base and happy 5th of July. It's a rainy 5th of July here in Australia. We hope you're all having a great day slash night wherever you are. So no show tonight. We do have a very special repeat, a UCR rewind. Because it's the 4th of July, we thought, why not go back in time and enjoy the uncensored horror review of not one, but two movies. That's right, we are taking it back to the 90s and we're going to share with you our review of I Know What You Did Last Summer and the sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So get your popcorn, get ready to enjoy the reviews of these 90s slasher classics. Enjoy!
Hello, UCR. What's your favorite scary movie?
I mean, I'd scream, but there are children, and I'm not waking them up.
It's my half-hearted scream.
What are you waiting for, Katie?
Hi everyone, how are we?
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for? Okay, that's all I got.
Yeah, if that doesn't give you a clue as to why we're here, then you have no idea of what we're talking about. Welcome to another Uncensored Horror surprise drop. Surprise. We had such a good response to our Mother's Day episode where we tackled the 13th, part 1 and 2, that we thought, hey, why not give you another double dose of hot heaping horror for July 4th? We
Happy
talk
Independence
about
Day, Americans.
Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day, y'all. We're going to talk about classic 90s slashers. Oh,
Nothing better.
we're going to start with it. Oh, that's right. It's the I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I know what
Okay.
everyone did last summer. We all stayed home.
Yeah. we're all
2
at
summers
home.
ago, that was when I was over there because all the memories are coming up. And
I saw
Jeff's
that.
been sharing them. Yeah, a bit scary. You know what I did that summer?
Oh, I know what I did that summer too. I was miserable on that.
Oh, wow. You guys
Good
lead happy
story.
lives.
Leave over Jennifer Lovefoot.
So yes, we are talking today about 1997's I Know What You Did Last Summer and its sequel, 1998's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. The book, the original movie was based on a book by Lois Duncan by the same name from 1973.
Oh, a fun
So,
fact about
you
that.
know, the film centers around 4 young friends stalked by a hook-wielding maniac after they accidentally kill a man. Ooh.
Let this be a lesson to you as we go into the holiday weekend, folks. Don't drink and drive. And
Exactly.
don't drive away from a crime scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably shouldn't do that ever. Either thing. You
I
know,
mean,
the
ever,
last
but-
ones.
You know, especially on a holiday.
So let's.
So, Katie, your fun fact, though, quickly, was it about Lois Duncan's novel?
Yes, she was very unpleased with the direction the movie took. She did not want it to be a horror movie because in the book, no one actually dies, not even the guy who gets hit by a car. So
Yeah, it's
she
just the guilt of what they went through that ruined their lives. So the
right.
narrative carries over, but, you know, they
And
thought, let's kill them.
And I thought I read somewhere that her daughter was actually murdered, so that kind of upset her a little more. And I could see how that would be a bit triggering. I mean, I could be wrong. I quickly grazed over that fun fact.
So I didn't get to say it before. If you haven't seen I Know What You Did Last Summer, or I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, or read the book, massive spoilers. So put us on pause, go watch those movies, and come back.
Listen, UCRs are well, UCRs, UCHs, whatever you want to call them, they're always full of spoilers. So if you're coming here, you've already seen the movie, you're a fan, you just want to see our take on it. And if
I'm just doing my due diligence, People might just have us on in the background. So in case they're not, that's been one of those movies, like, the background. Oh, I just want to watch that one. I don't want to spoil it for them. So if you haven't seen it, come back and watch it.
We can't go to the police. Not now. He's made sure of that.
You're a better fan than I am. Come back. Come back.
Okay, so let's talk about personally. When's the first time you saw? I don't know. Last time, Katie.
Ooh, I think it probably the year it came out. Probably at a slumber party because I was the horror fan and I was trying to scare my friends, and that's what I did. I have a real fun story about I still know what you did last summer, but I'll get to that when we get to there. But I liked this movie. I liked this a lot. When I was younger and first getting into horror, I was very into slashers. So this was one of my favorites.
Look.
I went and saw it at the theatre, at the cinema, and I was too young to see it at the time. So I had to bring my mum, who doesn't like horror film at all. But surprisingly, she really enjoyed the narrative of this film. She actually said, look, that was probably as good as they can get. She enjoyed the characters and the drama that went with all the killing.
I guess,
yes.
Am I the only one that has a mama that likes horror? Because my mom.
Yes, you are the only one.
Oh, my mom got me into horror, so there's that.
Good for you for being younger, Katie.
Yeah, my experience is very much the same as Luke's. We were too young to see it when it came out in the cinemas here in Australia, so I bribed my mother into going to see it, not telling her what the movie actually was. I just told her it was a comedy.
And I'm gonna get Buddy Wilson, Mom.
when the title started, she goes, "This isn't a comedy, isn't it?" I'm like, "No." Yeah. And she sat through the whole thing, jumped, screamed, did everything, and then at the end, after the end credit roll, she looked at me and said, "When's the next one coming out?" So she actually enjoyed it. She's a big wuss for horror movies. After I think she scarred herself for life watching Silence of the Lambs at home by herself one night.
Well, that would scar anyone.
And there was a blackout just as the end scene was playing, the Jodie Foster night vision. So,
oh damn,
scarred her for life.
That would freak me out too, man.
Okay, so let's have a look at our core cast here. We have, of course, at this time in American TV history, there's like America's sweetheart, Miss Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Breaking it up with a fun fact. Her role,
Julie James.
Her role was originally offered to another one of America's sweethearts, Melissa Joan Hart, but she did not want to do a horror movie.
What a spoil sport. What a spoil. I'm rewatching this last night. I think this was actually a pretty brave choice for her at the time because Julie's not really that likable a character. Like when you look at it, I didn't realize, like, well, Julie's not this all-American bubbly girl that she was used to playing as Sarah on Party of Five at that time. She's like morose and not really nice to her former friends or anything like that.
Well, and she was also complicit in something that's highly illegal and immoral. So I don't know. Maybe you're right.
I think it's a character.
I think she's traumatized and she doesn't know how to cope. And I think
she's a coward.
Well, they're all cowards, really. But she was just so traumatized by it, she just kind of soured up. I don't think she was necessarily miserable to her friends. Just how do you act around someone after you're holding
when you say to someone, "I don't blame you, but I don't want to know you either." That's pretty fucking harsh, man. That's your ex-boyfriend. You're like, whoa. Okay.
Seriously, like, do you really want to keep reliving that or no?
Look, if it was this guy, I probably would have done the same thing. I'm sorry, but
what?
Freddie Prinze Jr. Oh,
he had to fight for that part.
He should have. I don't know. He's such a doormat in this movie. I was like, oh.
But I don't want to know you either.
Well, I think the character of Ray was written as someone who's been really low-key and quite boring because he was a potential killer, and that's sort of how they wrote those.
Well, then maybe he
mystery
deserves an
flashbacks.
Oscar then because he should have welcome on his forehead.
He auditioned for that part 5 times because he was so nervous about whether he was going to get it or not. I mean, he wasn't a name just then, so he's just kind of this nobody who had a famous father trying to get his big break.
Then he met his big-name girlfriend on the set.
Who
Speaking of
is
her,
Sarah Michelle Gellar as Helen Shivers, the Cricket Queen herself. Now, this is season 1 hiatus. Buffy?
2.
No.
Yeah,
Season
on the
2.
hiatus. Yeah, no, just before season 2. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the time that she was edging for that Scream Queen role, wasn't she? In this and Scream 2, and she had such a bigger role in Scream 2 that was cut down and cut down and cut down into essentially a cameo. But I think she rocked in this. She was, yeah,
She was amazing.
We'll talk more about some of the action later, but we're just talking about the character at the moment. But I think she was rock solid in this part.
she plays a spectacular bitch, right? Like, we all love her as the bitchy person.
And I think there was some nice moments of fragility as when she was like, especially when after her and Helen were alone together, when she said, "I miss you," and she's like, she said,
her and Julie.
No, yeah, sorry, her and Julie, sorry.
She's Helen, but yes.
And then she's like, right. She's like, right, I'll get out of the car now. So,
I think Sarah was very was Buffy by then, right? She was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy, but I don't think
see her in these roles where she was the damsel, I think it didn't. That's probably why Sarah wasn't the Scream Queen that she could have been, because she's an amazing actress and doing roles. I think that people just want her as Buffy and want to see her be a victim.
Well, her in this movie and the next character we're going to be talking about actually influenced the casting for a future movie called Cruel Intentions. And so I think you guys know who we're going to talk about next.
Oh, we are.
Oh,
hell
I watched him last night in Big Sky. So there's a show. It's on Disney Plus.
As Ray.
I think he is just so underrated in like a million different ways, but I also hate him for what he did to our girl Reese. Anyways,
who cares? I love him.
He was very intense, wasn't he? He was super intense in this movie. It's like, brother, calm down.
I've dated. So his character Barry, I'm pretty sure I've dated.
Oh, we've all dated a Barry. Come on.
Yeah, Barry's the Barry King narcissist. No wonder you like him.
I love dating Barry.
But I think that shower scene probably, was a spring awakening for a lot of young gentlemen out there.
I was just
including that.
I was just going to ask, was that your sexual awakening? You?
Oh, that's right. Oh, he was. I can't get over how skinny the boys are in this movie. Like in this day and age, like we're used to being like jacked up, like
yeah.
And these guys are skinny little boys. And
I love
well, that's how I like to be, was little skinny, twinkish,
But they were very, I think the 4 of these guys were a very awesome. Look at this. Look at that cast photo. Oh, hello, 90s.
Yeah, that just about sums up the 90s.
It looks like a bad Dawson's Creek ripoff, doesn't it?
I love it. Sarah Michelle's like, I'm going to wear a headband. And then Jennifer Love's like, I'm overall. And then they just did it.
Well, hey, funny story about Dawson's Creek. They made a nice little tribute to Dawson's Creek by naming that beach
Dawson's Beach.
There you go.
Just
sprinkle these fun facts in there. But
there was also some really great supporting cast members in here that turned out to be quite famous. Of course, by this time, Johnny Galecki was already famous.
God, I love him.
What a good dude he was.
Isn't he? Like, you forget that this guy, like, outside of Roseanne, is that good looking. I mean, look at him, nice and clean cut. Ugh.
Yeah, good looking. Although I didn't believe the "Don't test me, you motherfucker" part. I'm like, really?
I didn't believe him either. I'm like, you're not a tie, you're Darlene's boyfriend. Shut up.
Don't you test me, motherfucker!
I think
going on Big
this person
Bang.
deserves a bit more for their role.
And
Anne Heche is
Heche.
Missy. There was
Jesus.
something a little bit touched about Missy, wasn't there? God
Yeah.
bless.
Look,
Just a
she
little?
delivered that character really well because, you know, this was back in the mystery era. It was the Scooby-Doo of slasher films. Like, who's the killer? Who's the killer? And she's quite believable as someone who was damaged enough to do it.
Oh.
So I really enjoyed it. She was unsettling. Every time Missy was on thing, I was unsettled.
You didn't say anything. Get out of here.
Oh yeah, especially handling
Down to-
all that
yeah.
meat.
Down
Jesus.
to the man, like I rewatched both of these last night. Her hand mannerisms and like she ticks a little bit when she like, does certain things. You're like, oh
Yeah.
girl, you.
And she had motive.
She had she didn't know she had motive, but whatever. And of
We don't know
course,
that.
we cannot discount Miss Bridget Wilson at this time Sampras, I believe.
Oh, I
My
forgot about
favourite.
Bridget Wilson.
Sonia Blade.
Elsa.
Oh, my girl.
Was she in everything
Yeah.
in the 90s or what?
She was my favorite thing in the 90s. I loved her as Elsa. So you were saying before that Sarah Michelle played Helen as such a bitch, but I think she was very pale in comparison to what a bitch Elsa was. Elsa was queen bitch.
It's wit with a wit. Even.
You did not mess with Elsa. It would freeze you out. You would be destroyed socially.
Did you say freeze out?
I did because of Frozen. I was going there.
I caught it. I caught it. Seems like anyways.
Weird that though.
Oh, dear.
Let's get into this movie, guys.
So yeah, basically, I find as I was going to say before, Scream was the dominant force, obviously, in teen slashers. This movie, and looking at it last night, it does feel very separate to Scream. Whereas Scream is suburban and high school and all this kind of thing. This is that little tick later. Do you know what I mean? This is graduating high school. This is them leaving and growing up. And I didn't feel it until last time, but it feels after watching Scream very recently. It does feel like a very separate movie. It's like the clones that would follow them. This does feel like those YA horror books that we used to read back in the day, which we're very excited about because Fear Street's coming out this week. I'm going to explode. No one else really cares.
I do.
I care.
I'm gonna my next 3 weeks are gonna be like so excited. But yeah,
well,
the thing I liked about this is it was a bit more of a whodunit mystery. It wasn't a slasher. Yes, there were bodies and like a little bits of that, but all of this movie was about the cat and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
Kevin Williamson wrote the script, who, if his name sounds familiar, it's because he Scream. And he actually started writing this before Scream. And yes, obviously.
And teaching Mrs. Tingle and da 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 da.
He okay, so he wrote everything in the 90s too.
Everything in the late 90s.
So yeah, it very much feels like a 90s teen film because, you know, I mean it is, but you know, it's got the drama and the romance and it's got some funny parts. And I agree with what you said. It had what Scream didn't, and this was transitioning into the adult world, which Scream didn't really have that kind of transition. They were in high school. Next thing you know, they're in college. You didn't get to see that real transition like you do here. And if I'm comparing the two, I think the Scream characters are a lot more likable.
Definitely.
But I think these guys have their qualities too. I mean, if we're gonna go toe to toe with Final Girls, obviously Nev Campbell wins, and don't come for me because you just don't.
Oh, definitely.
Don't
but I think also the Scream characters were, apart from, you know, some guy from our school that we didn't really like or care about, these guys actually traumatized from early on in the film. So I don't think they would be that likable. You know, we weren't going to have little pool party scenes and whatever with them. Like, oh, remember when we murdered someone?
Yeah.
Like,
this incident, obviously, like I think the acting in this scene from all of them was like A plus, and throughout the film, I think that they all did a pretty good job. Obviously,
Even friends.
I've already exposed my. I think he was Dicker's Link. I think this film wouldn't have suffered for having someone else in that part.
Who
But
would you have liked in Ray's part in the 90s? Who would we have liked?
Should we have swapped Johnny Galecki and him over?
no, not this.
Ooh,
I don't think
I
Jodie
would've
Galecki
liked
was a
that.
big enough name. I think you could have had someone like
To
Barry
America.
Watson from Seventh Heaven, that kind of shaggy looking dude.
Ooh,
Someone that didn't
that's
look.
an
I
interesting
think
choice.
he looked a little bit too similar to Ryan Felipe as well. Like they were both these like blah, blah, dudes. Like, but whatever. But he still did well. I just don't like his character. I was like, oh my god, can we please get rid of
Well,
Ray?
they were looking at Jeremy Sisto for that part,
Oh, interesting.
which I don't think would have worked because he in the 90s was, kind of the macho alpha dog, and that's kind of what Ryan was. So they had to kind of switch out their roles if that was the case.
But no, I think that especially in the accident scene and the drama after the accident scene when they get rid of the body, they all were pretty like spot on.
Yeah.
Ryan Felipe, it'd be interesting acting with that dude. He was very intense, is all I'm gonna say.
Now, would you guys go in after a fallen tiara, or would you say, "Bitch, I'll get you another one. Let's go"?
No, I understood why, because that was evidence.
It's evidence.
If that body washed up
Washes
with
up with that tiara in your head.
then
Aha.
they Helen terminated definitely, but they all would have been because they were together.
Aha.
She would have just killed them all. Tell her. I'd be like, well, they all help me, so
Yeah, Helen would have folded like a card table. Let's be honest. She'd be like, no.
Yeah, that's true.
But
That's very true.
watching it again last night. There was some good tension scenes, especially watching it in like higher definition. Like I'm so used to my DVD quality. I watched Blu-ray quality. I was like, oh, okay, this is you see some more, you hear so
there's
much more.
shadows.
And you could hear the flicking of the medallion.
Oh, okay.
In scenes that I didn't necessarily hear it first off. So, when Julie first arrives home and she's got the note at nighttime and she looks out into the street, you can hear it then.
Flick.
And I'd never noticed it. I'd noticed it in other parts before, but I was like, oh, he was there. Okay, cool. He was actually there seeing all this. But yeah, the cat and mouse of this movie is probably the thing that made it interesting. Scream definitely had it. Like, do not even quote, like, think that I'm bitching on Scream. Scream had intensity, but Scream had short bursts of intensity. This is a slow burn all the way through.
And build.
Paranoia, basically, going, who is this? Who is this guy? What's going on? What's he going to do? So let's talk about the fisherman without identity at the moment.
Okay.
In a town full of fishermen, that's a pretty, like,
Yeah,
The garb.
And if a fishing town, it could be anyone.
Effective too, like very, very effective.
I'm looking at that picture that you just put up, and I'm like, he's not very scary.
I think when you put it in context of so last night watching him come into Helen's house where she'd just gotten home before she gets a nice little hair chop. Like having that figure just float around when she runs into the coat at Missy's house. Like, oh, okay, this thing is everywhere. It's the danger in the small town that could be around any corner. That's mean,
if that snuck on me at night, I'd flip out too. But like looking at him, like, you're not really that intimidating, I suppose.
Yeah, until I think you change your mind when sitting in front of you with his little shiny hook. But
yeah, I suppose. Like I said, if that snuck up on me in the middle of the night, yes, I'm sure my tune would change. But like in the middle of the day and it's staring at you like it's just a guy in a coat.
And Steve, what you just mentioned then, like that scene where Helen comes home after they've been to Miss's house, so they've had all of this stuff happen, and comes home and you see this fisherman walking through the house. It's really good suspense, and we got that in Burst and Scream, as you said, but this was like this really sense of dread that was just there, and Bill and everything about it had that a little bit more of that grisly feel. You know, Helen comes home, her dad's like completely despondent, doesn't care about the girls at all. Who knows what happened to them?
Well, no, she's alive because because when Ray gets when Barry is bye-byes,
Yes.
the police officer says your parents are very worried about you.
Oh, well, it was pretty clear Daddy was
Mum.
an alcoholic because Daddy's just pumping while he's watching the game.
Well, these were the rich folk of the town as well. We've got to remember.
Well,
so
Julie is the one without a father.
Julie's the one without a dad, which
and her mum hates her.
No, I don't think her mum hates her. I think her mum's just having a touch with her.
What's happened to my daughter?
It's a very strange relationship, that one, isn't it? I feel like there's more backstory to Julie that we didn't get.
That would have been interesting because do we know what happened to her dad?
No,
Like, I can't remember. Did he leave? Did he die? Like,
no, I assume he's dead.
Okay, so there's
I
probably a
assume he's
little.
dead.
Okay, so if I assume he's dead, there's a little trauma there. So
Yeah.
Julie's just this like fucked up bitch who gets more.
Julie's got daddy issues. Let's put it that way.
They all had daddy issues in the 90s. Come on.
Now, we got to talk about it because it's probably the most famous part of this movie is the chase scene from the Croaker Queen herself.
I think we need to go to Helen's chase because that was spectacular.
Okay, well, what's the lead up to Helen's chase, though? So first we lose Johnny Galecki.
Johnny's gone at this point.
Well,
gets killed because he was a suspect at one point.
Johnny's gone. Goes Julie's virginity. She lost it on Dawson's Beach.
Yep. Julie's gone.
Barry's gone at this point.
Barry got killed. So Helen was the Croaker Queen, the pageant queen. She's back doing her duties as she has to hand the crown over to the
She's had a haircut, so it's very much centered around Helen at the moment as well.
Yes. Oh, it was my favorite part. And then Barry's watching her to keep her safe from above, and he's actually the one in danger.
Yep.
And Barry gets popped quite violently. Helen's the only one who can see because
I would like to see an unrated version of this movie if there's one.
That would be interesting.
It probably wasn't shot that way, but I feel like we don't see when these attacks happen. We don't see a lot, which is part of the suspense. But I would imagine what an unrated version would be a little bit bloodier.
Well, Barry got violently killed, and it was kind of fitting. Well, they all really flogged.
For someone that was violently killed, there was no blood. There's one drop of blood on a banister. I'm like,
did you really notice that? Because these kills, they were alluded to be very violent, and there's not a whole lot of blood.
Well, because then Helen put the police officer up there, and there was nothing there.
There was one drop of blood on a banister. That's all there was.
But I reckon this killer was an amazing cleaner because look at the job he did on Julie's trunk.
That's true.
That's true.
And he did clean up all that blood after poor Johnny Galecki got the hook through the chin. There was a lot of blood there.
A lot of ice in there though. That would have clotted.
Yeah, but he bled all over the kettles, the steam. He bled all over those steam kettles, which would have baked that blood on pretty quickly because they're hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're getting into semantics of things that probably shouldn't be thought about.
I know what you did last summer, Sai.
So Helen is basically calling the police officer a Mayberry ass punk, or what she calls him, reject, Mayberry reject, yes. And they stop in the alleyway. To help a stranded poor motorist. Also happens to be stuck in the alleyway.
And wearing a fisherman's slicker.
Now, interesting. This police car scene happens before Scream 2.
Yes, it does.
Just put it out there. I believe her. I believe Sarah. I believe she's terrified. I feel like they may have put her through the ringer in this chase scene because everything she does is gold. If there was an Oscar for horror, she probably would have got one.
I love
And this is the epitome of the slasher chase scene too. It's really well done.
Scene, but I'm so frustrated by this scene.
I know, right? We'll talk about the end of it. She girl runs a lot.
In her
The
heels.
cardio in heels for half of it, yeah. And then of course she gets to the store and her lovely sister is very, very, quick to respond. You're what? Elsa. That Elsa's dealt with for her.
She's not long for this world, poor Elsa.
No.
She is concerned then at one point. She's like, hey, my sister's
once Helen snaps at her, she's like, oh shit, something's real.
Yeah. And then by the time poor old Elsa gets to lock the door.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
But even when Helen's upstairs on the phone and Sarah does this really, really well. He reverts to that kind of little girl scared voice that everyone, or little child scared voice that everyone has when you were little and you wanted to yell out to parents because you were scared but nothing would come out. She does that really well. She's like, Elsa. It's like, oh, you poor bitch. And there's something a little bit unsettling about that store, which she'd obviously grown up in.
Yeah.
Then becoming this, maze.
Well, the store was a mob too in itself because just the shadows, the mountains, the fan overhead, that was so well, and the sound of that fan, all here is the fan just swooshing above her as she's walking silently. It was all so well done.
Okay, can I just say, fuck mannequins, okay? I've seen Maniac mannequins.
Yeah, it was all over, wasn't it?
Can't do it.
So, yeah, she escapes the fisherman many times. Close calls with the hooks to the feet. Throws stuff out a window. Running, and then stops to admire some beautiful 4th of July fireworks.
It's just like
she's
runs like 3 steps.
Just
3 steps away.
All you
3
have
steps
to do.
away from the street. Stops
and you had to
look
stop.
back at a noise.
I went and read some commentary on this chase scene, and they were all saying like, "Oh, she was so close. Why is she turning around?" And yeah. A lot of people were like, "He was going to kill her anyway." Waiting for her there. She was not getting out.
If she was moving at speed like she was, I think there would have been a chance of her getting around him.
Yes.
I mean, was he going to get her eventually? Probably, but wouldn't have gotten her that time.
Wouldn't have got her that time. No. She would have been out in the street.
It was so frustrating. It's like, why? It's just like when, they run up the stairs instead of out the door. It's like, what are you doing?
But her kill was a shock too, because she was kind of, her and Jennifer were the names kind of back then on this film.
True.
Her kill was a shock because she was Barbie.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, Helen was kind of almost thought was going to be a survivor. And because you know who the killer was at the point, I was of the mindset, okay, maybe Julie and Helen are going to get together and they're going to find out it's Ray or I'm going through all of these different things. And when she died, I was like, oh my God, I even turned to my mum I'm like, is she dead? And Mum's like, yes.
Yeah. I would have picked Helen over Julie.
I think it would have been more interesting.
Do.
I feel like there's a lot of, especially lately, I saw on Facebook, there's like a horror characters that should have survived instead of the leads, and that was the picture that was up. That was the first one. Was Helen over Julie, but
especially because with Julie, like they want you to be sympathetic to her after all she's been through, but you don't really know what she's been through.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think
the asshole boyfriend.
I don't necessarily think they're asking for sympathy. This is the thing. I don't think we're supposed to. They're not leading hard on sympathy angle like with Sydney Prescott, where they're like, "Oh, her mother was murdered. Her mother was murdered. Now her friends are being murdered. And everyone she looks at is being murdered." It's like this shit happened to these kids. This is how they're dealing with it. Is more the vibe of this. I feel.
Yeah. Speaking of friends that die, I miss you, Tatum.
So look, Jennifer Love Hewitt gets a pretty damn good chase scene in a boat. Like, I think they put her through it for that as well. That looked like it would have been intense, climbing and
did the
ice
good-
and all that kind of stuff.
And they did the slasher trope where, you know, the final girl finds the bodies, you know.
Although, was
and,
that meant
like,
to be
you know,
Ray?
like
Was that meant
Alice
to be Ray? Barry, sorry. I always get them too confused.
Barry.
That's meant to be Helen Barry,
Lee in
right?
the ice. Yeah, yes.
That's a really bad Barry mannequin.
I mean, they're all pretty bad mannequins, but
I think that was actually Sarah that slid out.
the ice.
Yeah, looking at it last night, I think it was actually her because it was only like a probably 40-second, if that, and it was it's a pretty impressive mannequin. But anyway, you can go back and look at it yourself.
If that was Sarah, then it wasn't ice because
it doesn't look like ice.
Oh, no.
Closer investigation.
That was
either.
like clear stuff. I watched the making of, and it was just.
I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's
Could
called.
you imagine Jennifer's with the top in that little top in real ice? There would be some steam happening, girl.
Then you'd think they would have like wanted it to be that way, but it wasn't ice because it was meant for her to be able to move very smoothly through, and I can't remember the material that it was.
Let's not forget that the tagline of this movie for a long time was "I know what you noobs did last summer."
Well, that iconic shot of her just, what are you waiting for? We're waiting for your top to pop.
You know what?
That's really what it is.
Against today's standards, those aren't big boobies.
Listen, as someone with big boobies.
Natural boobies.
But they were natural boobies.
They were natural boobies.
All right, so huge spoiler. The killer is revealed to be one Mr. Ben Willis, Muse Watson, who has killer written all over him. Like as soon as he speaks, you're like, oh god, it's him.
You know,
I was like,
he looks, looking at him right now, he looks like a real jacked up Mike Rao, doesn't he?
I will kill you. I will kill you.
that dirty jobs guy.
True. And then there's another interesting fight scene. Ray kind of sweeps and saves the day. Ugh.
Yeah, no one believes this. I'm sorry for.
I don't believe that either.
No one believes.
I think Julie could have done it by herself. That's the problem with these.
Julie stood off.
I think Julie could have done it by herself.
Yep.
But
no,
we needed a Prince Charming.
No one believes you, Ray. Sorry. Moving on.
But yeah, without spoiling too much, that's the end of that first film.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, we're not getting super specific with it today because we just want you to go back and go, oh, I might watch that movie because that's the idea. And then we thought it was all over. There was a nice little sting in the tail, obviously, in this first
and that
one.
little flick again of that medallion.
We hear a little ding. And we were all to believe that someday would be a sequel. Little did we realize that someday would be a year later when we got I still know what you did last summer. I love that the hook is aimed squarely into her cleavage that is now prominently on display.
I mean, it's not squarely. If you're like, I'm looking at it, and it's a little above her.
It's going towards what looks like a heart pendant and her clavage.
Okay,
so cute little symbolism moment. I love. So this is let's look at the box office for it because this is why there was a sequel. The budget was 17 million, and then worldwide box office was 125.3 million. Wow!
We love it. We love it.
There goes a sequel. I guess it's
like hilarious. That like $17 million. You kind of like. I know the film looked polished and everything. Geez, where will that money go? Like, it's a lot of money.
Well, a lot of it was on location. Like there was a location shoot, obviously, because it was very off place. That one. Yeah, and then we get the big, sexy up big sister is what I think of this movie as. This one's like next one kind of takes it from that small town, like very natural film. This is glossy slasher film, right?
Yes. And there's
it did feel a change of like you're right. It's a change of gears though, because it does feel completely different. And I feel Julie It's different. She's no longer the little timid, I run over someone.
Yeah,
and funny
Julie
stuff and
Julie
about-"
gets she
to-
kind of gets that Sarah vibe. There's a little bit of bubbliness to her. I'm like, oh, that's not who we knew.
You know,
We wanted
there
Helen.
we did want Helen, but we got Brandy, and I'm going to take that honestly. I loved Brandy in the 90s.
Do you know what? This cast again. We got very racially diverse for all
Well,
of a sudden, didn't we?
The funny thing is, Brandy's role as Carla was written for a white girl, but Brandy kind of knocked it out of the park, so they rewrote it for her.
Mekhi Phifer, yeah.
He was big in the 90s.
Yeah.
We love Mekhi Phifer.
Ugh.
I mean,
Ray's
look at
back.
him next to Mekhi Phifer. He just
Yeah.
looks so skinny, so like meek. And Mekhi Phifer.
And I'm really sorry, but what is this guy's name that plays Will? Matthew Settle. There it is.
Did he
Oh, yeah,
do
him.
anything else?
Settle.
It was cute.
Sorry?
Did he do anything else?
He did a lot of I believe he was in Party 5, but he did a lot of those direct to video stuff. He's in he's in one of my favorite ones, which Jeffrey actually loves too, called The In Crowd.
Oh, I know that one. I actually
Settles
know
in that.
one.
Settles an asshole in that.
I was gonna watch it the other day, and I thought, like, I turned it on the first 5 minutes. I'm like, nope.
It's a great movie. If you ever watched the In Crowd, you need to watch it with commentary because the two lead actresses do it, and it is hilarious.
I guess I will do that then.
Hilarious.
You know who else is in? Two notable actors are in this that I don't think really credit for their roles. Yes, Jack Black in Dreadlocks, which is regrettable.
Oh, I want to kill that motherfucker.
It's bad casting.
I mean,
And then the other one
kids.
who I fucking loved as soon as she came on screen.
it's going to be Jennifer Esposito. There
Ah,
it is.
Nancy.
Freaking Esposito. Now, she was just there. It was a crime against Jennifer Esposito. Let's be real.
Look, her
Wasted.
she
Wasted her.
She deserves so much more.
She deserved to make it to the end.
I think how she checked out in this movie, and then I got to it, and I was like, "Are you
Very
fucking kidding me?"
anticlimactic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
it was actually supposed to be Nancy at the end, but they the way Nancy passes on was originally supposed to be Carla, and then they switched it.
Carla went through it. I feel like this is like they
Carla
like to
earned her
punish
spot.
these female leads in these movies. They're like, all right, we're gonna throw you through this. We're gonna throw you through this.
Yeah,
This is gonna happen.
just like.
But
Carla
you know
earned
what?
that.
I would take all that for a holiday.
Even during hurricane season,
Well, look.
Well,
I
Bahamas,
mean,
in any rest of what's going on in the world right now.
I mean, it's beautiful. I would definitely go there. It was Mexico and not the Bahamas, so
Yeah.
for-
Well,
like
location, whatever.
cheaper.
Cheaper.
Evan Williamson intended to write the script for this, but he was very busy at the time with a little couple movies that you may know called, I don't know, The Faculty, Halloween H2O, maybe a tiny little show called Dawson's Creek. So he had his hands full. He was also
Are you telling us, Katie, you want to wait for his life to be over?
he, they asked him, will it be yes or will it be sorry? And he said sorry. He also was supposed to write Scream 3 and he didn't, and that's probably why it was so bad. But that whole
We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
Interesting. If you are watching this, Uncensored Horror people, and you want us to tackle the Scream series before Scream 5 comes out next year, please comment and let us know. No one's commented on anything yet, but if you want us to do
No.
Scream,
But people watch
we will
it,
do it.
so we
People
need to know.
watching, so if
Yeah.
you're watching, reach out because we
Listen.
will watch something.
We just need the one person to say do Scream, and we'll be like, well, okay,
We'll
if
do
you
it.
insist.
If you want, how deep would you like us to go?
Well,
The 7-hour Scream documentary.
the people have asked for it, so we have to give it to them. And it's only one of Katie's favorite horror films, so I guess we'll do it. We'll do it. It's all right.
I think this new film did lean heavy on the sentimentality a little bit. I felt that, Julie was actually sad that Helen was dead. She didn't really seem to care that much about Barry because
Did anyone
she had,
really care
she
about
had that
Barry?
photo of, I would care for those abs being gone for the world. Oh,
I mean,
Well,
did you know?
he wasn't a good dude, but he was still her friend.
I mean, he didn't. I mean, no one really deserves to violently.
No,
I
no one
shouldn't-
deserves to be hooked to death.
Yeah,
really.
well, some people do, but Barry, as big of an ass as he, didn't deserve that. But
I
what
really enjoyed the change of location, though. I thought giving it, and this one did have a lot more blood, but there was still that cat and mouse going on, especially with an island full of new people. Who could it be? Who could it be?
Well, this was also a very dated film, and it doesn't probably mean to be so dated, but you can't make this happen now because there's no.
Who listens to the radio anymore?
Okay, number one, they win this trip on a radio show where Claire actually gives the wrong answer, but now
Still wins.
I mean, now everyone's got cell phones
Google.
and caller ID and Google, so it wouldn't work. So this is a very dated movie. And then
Jenna Hewitt's breasts are real, so that's
They are
very
out,
dated.
but they are out and proud in this movie.
they are. She is proudly displaying them, and she is also displaying her king skills because back then she had a little career in Japan.
We were one of the best things this movie gave us was how do I deal?
How do I deal?
Like Jennifer Love Hewitt.
That was a
don't
great
even.
song, honestly. So
What a great track!
it
What a
really
great
was
track!
underrated.
But she this cast obviously went through it as well because they are. I forgot how long they are wet for a lot of this movie. It's like, could you imagine?
Through a goddamn hurricane. Come on.
Rain machines.
That
rain a lot of this
that
budget.
rain machine was on high.
Yes,
Like,
it was. Yes,
it's like, oh
was.
god. I drew seeing behind the scenes stuff this and then like in huge thermal coats when they weren't filming because it was just wet. But I can imagine how sick they would have gotten by the end of it.
So what was Matt Settle's character's name? I can't remember.
Oh, Will Benson.
There we go.
Benson.
Okay, so notice that on the vacation scenes that there's no Ray. Where's Ray?
No.
Where is he?
He should have been killed.
He should have. But Ray tells her no, even though she just, proposes a last minute trip full of sex and debauchery. And he says
To
no.
the Bahamas.
To the Bahamas. What man in his 20s is going to turn that down? No
Ray.
Man. Well, he immediately regrets his decision and, heads to go catch up with Julie, but then he gets his friend killed and he ends up in the hospital because he gets
a Barry moment and gets run down by his own car.
Just such a
I'm
sorry. I don't believe any of his
he's not a hero. Let's put it that way.
He's not. And you know what? Freddie Prinze Jr. hasn't even seen this movie because he's so embarrassed by it. You should be embarrassed by it because you were terrible.
I have a feeling he hasn't seen a lot of his movies then.
Well, I mean, the movie itself isn't necessarily terrible. He's terrible.
Yeah.
She's not all that.
The movie, look, if he would have died,
I think it would have been great.
The movie would have been great. We would have got more of this. And this was what was winning.
Those
three together, I would have watched like another hour and a half more.
Yes. This is the winning team right there. That's the dream
chase.
team right there.
Do you know what I liked about it too? Julie wasn't a fucking faded wallflower. She picked up that axe and she was like, "I'm gonna fuck you up." She was not having it this time. She was over it. She was like, "Oh, my grave stays empty." I'm like, "Okay, rock on, girl."
Well, do you enjoy that when a girl finds her girl power and just kind of gets going? I liked it. I liked Julie a lot more in this movie, mostly because she was just fed up and done with it and finally just stood up for herself.
Yeah, she was done quicker than Sydney was done. It took Sydney to the end of Scream 2 to be done. But
I still like Sydney better.
But still like I feel
better.
Like if you look Julie the wrong way, she may have shanked you. She was like, "I will kill you."
I will kill you. I'm done with this.
I will kill you. Well, she at least stabbed Carla how many times? but whatever.
That's true.
Um,
true.
but of course, without spoiling, old mate's back. He just like, and look at how big that hook is this time.
Well,
That hook
Had an
is
upgrade.
huge. He had an
Upgraded the
upgrade.
hook.
So huge spoiler alert. The ever cute and beautiful Matthew Settle, who was trying to, get into Julie's pants, just happens to be Ben Willis's son.
Will
Ben's
son. Like, did anyone else go?
was there in front of
Yeah.
us.
I was
Like,
like, oh. Was this during? I was like, was this during a writer's strike, and we never went back and cleaned that up? No? Okay.
Kevin
But-
Wilson wouldn't have let that happen.
I feel like something slipped through the gates there. It's like, oops, okay.
Oh,
But
God.
look, I
fine.
feel like this second movie gets a lot of hate when it doesn't deserve it. I very seldom watch that first movie without watching this second one straight away. Which is why I
they're
said
just they're very different films, as you said. The tones is very different. So to watch them both, there's definitely a gear change. It's not bad. I think it's more a slasher though, whereas the first film was a suspense film.
I don't hate these films. They don't hold up as nicely as the Scream films. I'm gonna say that. I also really hate Freddie Prinze Jr. as the hero because he's really not believable.
Especially sweeping it at the last minute. It's just like I don't think she did it.
She didn't need him. She did not need him.
And this is the difference between Scream and I Know Last Summer. They're still fixated on the, I have a man come and rescue me. Whereas, by the end of Scream 1, by the end of Scream 2, by the end of Scream 3, Sydney's by herself with the killer. Do you know what I mean?
Sydney's just like, hold my beer, I got this.
Yeah. And I feel like they gave Julie a bit of short shrift. Obviously, so the budget for this one was 24 million. It only ended up making 84. So not as big a success.
Terrible.
I know, but not as big a success.
They didn't lose any money.
They tripled the budget.
Usually tripling the budget is where they start to talk about a sequel. I find it strange that they didn't
do a third.
Consider
funny story. They did do a third.
Well, they did, but we don't talk about that.
No.
with these original characters, like with Julie, I'm surprised, and I don't doubt that there's probably a trip floating around Hollywood now with the success of Halloween 2018 that Julie James may come back to us one day.
And Scream 5,
but are going to see a TV series.
Oh gosh!
I honestly think this would do better on TV than it did on the big screen.
I feel like it'll definitely be a slow burn.
Scream?
But Scream, the TV series, was
it wasn't bad.
But the remake is actually going to take part from the original book and the movie and kind of cross-pollinate them a bit more. So I think it's going to be more of that whodunit than it is.
I think it'll do really well as a TV show, honestly. I think Scream did okay as its TV show, but it doesn't translate super well for a TV show.
No, and they couldn't when they didn't use Ghostface. Obviously, that was going to fuck him hardcore.
Yeah.
But, look, let us know what you think of I Know What You Did Last Summer, because I've got a little happy place in my heart for it. As I said, rewatching them again, I said to Luke last night, these are actually really good films. Like in the space of what was to come after them, that late 90s, early 2000s, everything was meta, everything was da-da-da-da-da. These two movies, Scream, Urban Legend, The Faculty, they stand out. They stand out.
So good.
Yeah, they stand out for me as quality. Like
they were solid. I remember there was always that big backlash. Had the 80s crowd sort of like, you don't like this 90s tongue-in-cheek, self-aware stuff. But, looking back on the whole thing, I think those are great horror films. They're good slasher flicks. I like what they did at the time, and I like to revisit it as well. Like, you know, when I sit there and know I'm the same, Steve, I say, this is a solid flick.
I
But the
agree.
acting-
Good characters, good acting,
Besides
good direction.
Freddy, honestly, and even in that second movie, he's the weak link.
Mhm.
Besides Freddy, I think if they replaced him, the movies would be better. Sorry,
So you
Freddy.
don't want Ray included in the new one?
No,
you know they
well,
would, though.
I
You
have
know they
an
would bring
idea.
Freddy back.
I have
No,
an
we
idea
can
for a
have-
third movie.
We can have Ray back. We just can't have Freddy back. I think Ray would have been a fine character if
They
you had
would.
a better actor.
in someone
honestly.
else's hands.
Someone else could have done it better. And
But-
I like these movies. I think they're solid. I just don't think they hold up as well as Scream.
But I like them. This is what I like. They are place and time movies. You go, you want to feel the 90s, you want to feel like a small coastal town in the 90s, watch this.
Oh,
You
yeah.
want you want suburbia.
Creek CD.
You want suburbia in the 90s, go watch Scream. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah. The nostalgia factor's there. I think it's great. Just, I mean, you couldn't have the 90s without it. Like,
Yeah.
this was part of the movement to revitalize horror, and it did
But
what
it's-
it had to do.
yeah, it's the name that comes up straight after Scream.
Right.
I know it was last summer.
Oh, it absolutely did what it was meant to do, and to revamp horror.
So we
And
say
it's
to
all-
you, cheers. I know we did last summer. Tell us, all right, we're going to judge the movies together.
Okay.
Out of five
Okay.
hook hands, what do we give them? Katie,
2.5.
2.5. Okay.
For both of them or for part one?
For both of them, we're
Oh,
looking at
both
them
of them
together.
For
together.
both of them together, I'll bump it up to a 3 for both of them. But for the first one, maybe 2.5.
She's harsh, isn't she?
She's horrible.
She's harsh. Luke, what about you?
Look, okay, so how we're going to go with this one? I would give part one maybe 4.5. I would give part two maybe 3.5. So let's just leave it at 4.
You're too generous.
4 out of 5.
Yeah, no,
I
I'm going to
think
go.
2 was weaker.
You're too
I'm
generous.
going to go 4 as well. I think the strength of one and the strength of I really liked the aesthetic of the second one. I liked that darker, kind of creepier, islandy kind of thing. I dug that. I don't dig Ray, so he gets he gets minuses.
You lost
But,
a hook for Ray.
Yeah, we lost a whole hook for Ray for the casting. But yeah, I'm going to go with 4 as well.
Mm.
So if you if you're watching, why don't you tell us how many hooks you gave to I know we did last summer, and we're going to be back again early, probably very, very quickly, quicker than you'd like, maybe.
Talking about the 90s and talking about Fear Street.
Yes, Fear Street Part 1. That's right. I've committed us to doing a show on every Fear Street movie and probably a recap show, actually. We're probably going to need to digest the trilogy.
Let's
So-
talk about this all day.
If
But
you're
we're
a
gonna-
if you're a millennial / elder millennial and love Fear Street, come join us for the Fear Street saga. It's going to be amazing. Until then, thank you very much for joining us today, Luke and Katie. And in the words of Ben Willard, if you leave a man for dead, make sure he's really dead.